Hi everyone, welcome to another DarkYellow Art Talk. I'm Mia and I'll be introducing today's guest Lizzie in just a minute. But first, I'm just going to run over a couple of housekeeping bits before we get started. So for those who aren't used to Zoom and would like to change the format of what they can see, you can just click the view button at the top of your screen and it should give you an option to see speaker view or gallery view, whatever you choose. And if you have a question for us, you can pop it in the chat or you can raise your hand. I think there's a button just under the reactions that you can just raise your hand and we'll get to you. And if possible, could you please keep yourselves on mute throughout just so we can keep Art Talk running smoothly. So yeah, thank you for joining us. As I said, I'm Mia. I'm a content writer at DarkYellow and I also help out with the art club, which is why I'm talking to you today. DarkYellow is a supportive platform created by artist Lauren Little for emerging artists, typically those who are at the beginning stages of their art journey. As a young artist myself, I also get involved with the art club, like I said. My colleague Lucas is also here with us today to communicate with you in the chat if you have any problems or questions. And this is our 6th art talk as part of our art club, which is recently launched. We have a whole host of resources, some of them are listed on the screen, events and things for you to get involved in. And it's also a great place to be part of an artistic community, something that I've definitely missed since I've graduated. A lot of the activities that we have going on in the art club kind of replicate the art school experience. So like art nights, so we come together to make anything creative. It's kind of really chill, bring some wine, food, snacks, just kind of have like a laugh. But also there's art huddles, which are kind of similar to art crits if you went to art school. And you can just bring anything you've been working on to get some really valuable feedback from other artists and creatives. There's also monthly workshops, which are a huge part of the art club. We bring in professional artists to teach their skills and we help you learn something new that you can maybe apply to your own practice. And our next one is actually all about realism drawing with Veronica Valerie. So Lucas will pop a link in the chat to that if you're interested in signing up. And of course, we have this talk and loads of others which are free for everyone to watch live. Members of the art club can have access to the recordings as well as those other perks and resources, like I said. The link to join and to find out more about the art club will be posted in the chat. So if you're interested, you can take a look. And now I think finally it's time to introduce our guest, Lizzie, who's going to be talking all about her journey from graduating with a BA in illustration to working freelance and then landing a really amazing job at a publishing group. And I think she has some really valuable experience and insight into how to make it as a creative, especially when you're just starting out. So I hope you guys are excited. And without further ado, I'll stop sharing my screen and Lizzie can take over.
Cool, thank you. I'll just wait to...
There we go. Cool.
Okay. Bear with me whilst I quickly get this out and then I'll crack on. Cool. Thank you. Hi everyone. Thanks DarkYellow for having me along and thank you Mia for the introduction. Can you see all of this okay? Is there anything in the way? Okay. So yeah, like Mia said, my name's Lizzie. I'm an illustrator and a children's book designer based in London. And I'm kind of just here to talk to you about my illustration degree and how I graduated during the pandemic, became a full-time freelance illustrator, which I wasn't planning on doing, and then now being a full-time children's book designer at Usborne Publishing. So just as like a background, some of the clients I've worked with as a freelance illustrator have included like the BBC News, Comic Relief, Financial Times, Notion, Student Minds and UCL, but I'm not putting this in to like brag, I'm putting it in to let you know that none of these people came to me. I kind of like found them myself after I graduated, and it kind of just included a lot of finding people's emails, annoying people, and just kind of pushing past like some social anxiety and just reaching out to as many people as I could, and yeah, just create some fun work with people. And then yeah, these are just some of the like articles and stuff I've done as well with other creatives. And again, I'm going to be speaking to you about how I got into these and the resources I used and how I use social media, how I reached out to people. And yeah, because I think people gatekeep illustration quite a lot and don't like to share resources or tips and tricks into getting clients and pushing your work. And that's actually not just illustration, that's like any creative, whether you're a graphic designer, photographer, fine artist. I think we should all help and share our techniques and support each other. So yeah, here is some of my freelance work. I usually work digitally. I use Procreate or Photoshop, and if I'm feeling brave, like Adobe Illustrator, but that's not that often because I find it hard. But I usually illustrate themes such as like the LGBT community, mental health. A lot of my work's been mental health based, and then recently children's book illustration, but I like to tie all of these themes in. And this is just a mix of paid works, like the top left is comic relief work, and then just stuff I've done for myself and put in my portfolio to get myself out there and get clients that I want to reach. So as Mia briefly mentioned, I studied the BA in illustration at ARU, had a great time, met loads of nice people. And I guess I've learned throughout my degree just to draw as much as I could, to experiment as much as I could, make loads of mistakes, take loads of risks, and just communicate with other people. I learned how important it is to like have a creative group around you. And now even graduating, I find it so important to have like, even just using Instagram, having other creatives to talk to, I find really important. And I think I really kind of took my degree for granted because I wish I still had a space where I could like experiment and not have to worry about whether like I can get a client from it or not. But I guess it's just really important to reiterate that like, even if you're not in a degree, or if you've left your degree, or if you're still in it, regardless of where you are in your creative journey, these things, well, I guess apart from drawing if you don't want to draw, but these things are usually quite important. Like making mistakes and taking risks is like the one thing I've learned how to turn into a strength. And I guess I'll delve into that more as the talk goes on. So this is some of the drawing I did during my degree. I guess I just used to resent drawing. I never used to be like a big drawer, but going out and drawing the world around me, typography I was really drawn to, just really helped strengthen my practice. So I'd go and sit in like train stations or sit on streets or sit in cafes and just draw the world around me. And I think that's what inspires me the most, is just finding things that grab my attention. And I guess that's with any creative practice. If something grabs your attention and if it interests you and inspires you, then it's really great to latch onto that. I feel like there have been times in my creative practice where I've been on Pinterest or social media and been thinking like, oh, I need to make work that looks like that, or there's loads of nice pink work at the moment, I need to make loads of nice pink work, people like it. But I think having to like draw yourself back in and just draw things that inspire you will really go a long way, because this then turned into a big poster project, a speculative project I did for uni. It was my final project and it's called The Way for All. And it was a diversity themed London Underground A1 poster. And I made some maps out of it as well. And it ended up being highly commended for the World Illustration Awards, which, I mean, I was shocked. Like my uni tutor put me forward for it. I didn't think I would get it, but I think in my final term, like I realized that working on the theme of like diversity and then tapping into my interests really strengthened what I wanted to do. My work doesn't look like this now, but it was really pivotal in also making new connections, meeting new people, and understanding my way of working. So graduating in a pandemic was interesting, I guess. I mean, I know some people had it worse, and I mean all creatives actually suffered as a result of the pandemic, but I was confused. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't feel ready to be in the world, like the creative sphere. So I went home and I made a digital zine, and I called it Looking After Your Mental Health While Self-Isolating. And I just wanted to use what I had learned and used my love for illustration and turn it into something which I thought could help people during the pandemic. And again, this isn't like my style now, but I find it really important to my process. I just kind of did loads of research, reached out to people, asked people what they needed in this tricky time, and made a digital zine and shared it on Instagram, and just tried to help people when I felt really helpless and a bit scared myself in like March 2020. I ended up just reaching out and sending it to people that I knew would find it important. So I reached out to big like Instagram accounts which had lots of followers who really like strive on talking about mental health, influencers who, I mean, I look back at it and it's really cringy, but influencers who I know really value mental health. And it ended up reaching like 12,000 people and it ended up being featured in a digital trends article about like mental health posts on Instagram, and that then led to being commissioned by the BBC to do a mental health article. And again, that was crazy, but I guess I find it really cool that this was just a result of me tapping into what I found important and reaching out to people and kind of being a bit cringy, being a bit annoying. And yeah, it ended up being featured on the front of BBC News for a week, which was crazy. But it was just really nice. I got loads of messages from people saying that it helped them speak about mental health for the first time ever. And some people was, I guess, like feeling mental health issues for the first time because of the pandemic. People were feeling really lonely. And it was just really lovely and nice to see my work out there, and not just to be like aesthetic. I guess I used to just make work which I thought would look nice, but publishing work which helped other people was really, it was just a whirlwind. It was really weird, but it was really nice. And then so after a year of freelancing, so working on articles, posters, publishing, I realised that I was really into book design, and specifically children's book design. So I guess, yeah, this was still in lockdown, but I found like my old children's books that I really enjoyed reading. I went through like an old library and just started redesigning books which I really enjoyed, and it just really helped me practice book design, layout, graphic design. I'd never really done graphic design, so it kind of forced me to go onto InDesign and just create some work. And I ended up creating like a whole portfolio of work, just based on redesigning books, not just like specific briefs, just things I'd set myself. And yeah, I guess I just kind of went for it. I really enjoyed Usborne books, so I redesigned some of those. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is, you know, if you have a goal and if you want to work with specific clients, or if you want to work on specific projects, so like for example, I wanted to work with Doc Martens, so I did a fake Doc Martens brief and sent it out there. Or I wanted to work in children's books, so I kind of just took existing material, redesigned it, and kind of put that in my portfolio to showcase to clients that I can do that sort of work and they could trust that they could hire me, and just kind of reinstill some confidence in them. So this was fun. I mean, it was a lot to get my head around and I wasn't used to it. I wasn't like even just the bottom two, like learning how to curve text. I was just like YouTubing like how to curve text. So I learned a lot, but yeah, I guess as well, after I was applying for jobs, I realized I didn't want to be freelance anymore because I wanted some structure. Freelance is great, I really enjoyed it, but if I was at a really early stage in my career and I felt like I wasn't learning as much as I could, so I thought I'm going to get myself out there, work in a full-time job and get as many skills and meet as many people as possible. So after being rejected from, I was rejected from so many jobs. Like I was rejected from Penguin like 8 times. I was rejected from so many publishers. And I think people think that, oh, it's so easy. You'll just like go into a job and they see you do it and they think it was easy. But I had to go through just a really long process to get there. I got fed up and one day I made a book called I Would Love to Be Your Design Assistant, an application by Lizzie Knott. And it was basically my CV, my cover letter, my portfolio and my details in the format of a children's book. And I printed out about 15 and I made a map and I went around London and I handed them in to different publishers last May. And it landed me a job at Usborne, which was just crazy. I guess it was just so competitive, and after graduating in the pandemic, I then had the cohort the year later kind of trying to get jobs at the same time as me. So it needed a unique approach and it took a lot of work, but I got here and now I'm a children's book designer and I love it. It's amazing. So Usborne Publishing, they're a family-founded business. Peter Usborne still is the director. He still comes around the offices. And we're based in London, Wolves and Oxford. And we just make children's books, so it's all focused on children and learning. And everything's done in-house. So we have an in-house team of editors who write all the books, designers who design all the books. And then we kind of get in illustrators, but everything else is done in-house. So we do books like baby books, like I'm working on a baby book at the moment about like baby's first words, to like 100 things to know about the planet or 100 things to know about politics. There's a massive variation, and it's been really fun to learn about. So yeah, like I said, family business. I mean, we're one of the world's leading independent book publishers, and I think that's because everything we do is aimed for children. Like sometimes we have to just think like children. And also I just love, when I was applying, I knew I wanted to apply for Usborne because I loved how diverse the books are. We've done some really great books recently, like the one on the top right called What is Racism? And we just tend to cover so many themes and just, I guess, try and open up children's minds and get them imagining and get them knowing from a young age what's important and getting them asking big questions. So it's really cool to know that there's more than 12,000 Usborne books in print around the world. And yeah, it's a really inspiring place to be, and not every day is the same, and I really love it. So for example, one of the series I'm working on at the moment is called See Inside, and it's a lift the flap book. And I guess what I've had to learn is, like, when you're designing a book, if it has flaps in it, what's going to go inside the flap and what goes underneath? And I didn't realise before working in book design that so many aspects go into it. Like, I've had to learn so much, but it's really exciting. And then this is like kind of the complete other end of the spectrum of another series I'm working on. So this is like the complete Shakespeare book, but Usborne do the complete series are different. So there's complete Shakespeare, complete Dickens. I have one of them here actually, so they're quite like thick books, they're quite chunky. But at the beginning of every chapter there is like a character introduction. So we as a designer would design where all of the characters would go and what colours would be used, and we would send it off to an illustrator and kind of go back and forth. So I don't necessarily do the illustrating, but what I do is quite drawing led. Like, I'll draw out all the characters where they should go, and then the illustrator makes them look really pretty. So a day in my life as well as a children's book designer, it ranges every day, which I think is why I enjoy it so much. So for example, I'll be chatting to editors about what they'd like. So if I'm working with an editor on a specific book, they'd need to tell me that an apple should go there and a unicorn should go there because it makes sense for the reading order. Designing spreads, which is the fun bit, designing where everything should go. Editing artwork, so when illustrators send in finished work, having to move all their layers about, move everything around and make sure it works as a spread. Editing old books, so we'll have a lot of old books come in because, for example, if we've depicted something in a certain way, so if we've shown a world flag and the world flag has changed, we'd have to go through all the old books and change them all for licensing. And I just didn't realise how involved it was, but lots of little mini bits like that. I spend time looking for illustrators as well, which is really fun. I usually look on Twitter. I usually type in like hashtag looking for illustrators, or I'll go through agency websites. I don't think it's necessarily important that you have an agent because, for example, like I've just picked up an illustrator who doesn't have an agent because his work was great. But I guess social media is where I find most of my illustrators. And I mean, I know Instagram can be quite toxic, but it's just quite an easy way. You get to see the work straight away. And yeah, like mocking up flat books. So like the flat book I just showed you guys, I'd have to print them all out before it goes to print first, just to cut them all out and make sure that everything works before sending it to print. So if you're an illustrator and you want to pitch to a publishers, I'm just going to give you like a few tips of what we look for. I mean, every publisher is different, but for example, this was something that an illustrator sent to us. So we found him on his agency website, and we loved that he had a wide range of work. So he had, I mean, on the bottom right, that could be used for news articles, quite character-focused illustrations. We have, I mean, like the middle top one is just like a full scene with loads of movement. The same with the one on the top right, and then the one on the left is a lovely snippet of a busy scene. And I guess we're just always looking for artists who can evolve and adapt. And if, I mean, with this illustrator here, I know that we could give him a brief about maths, but also a brief about the jungle, and I'd feel quite confident through his like wide range of portfolio that he could deliver something really cool for us. And again, so like I mentioned, social media. is usually quite important to grabbing attention. But if you don't like using social media, which is completely understandable, having a strong website, which is clear, usually with like a plain background, and having maybe like a couple of GIFs on it, some bright images, having something that catches attention is really important. If you're on social media, showing progress work as well is also just really important. It's really exciting for us to know the progress of an illustrator or creative and how, I guess, they approach certain briefs. That's always really important. Diversify your work. So not just what I mentioned, which was showing you can attempt to do a load of different subject matter, but also making sure your work is diverse. Make sure you're showing people, the wide variety of people that we have in our society. If you're just showing one type of person, then it's not going to convince us that you can show the society that we're in today. It's really important. And connect and email. Send people emails, find art directors. I usually find that when an illustrator posts some work and they've worked with a company, they usually thank the art director, and I would usually just go and Google the art director and find their email and be a bit of a stalker. But I mean, the worst they can do is say no. It's not that weird, it's okay. But and a good tip when you are emailing an art director you want to work with or a designer is linking your website, but also just attaching pictures into the email straight away instead of attaching a PDF. Because if we can see your work straight away, then it saves us time and we're more likely to be like, oh, great, let's work with you. So it's just these little things that you learn along the way to grab people's attention, but just reach out as much as possible. The worst people can do is say no or ignore you, and that's okay because someone will say yes one day. Oh yeah, and then recently I did a freelance brief with Comic Relief. The theme was like funny as power, and it was about diversity and coming together, especially during the pandemic. It's been tricky. So there was 11 artists who did it. I was one of them, and I just kind of wanted to encapsulate the big red nose and make it clear what it was for, but also just show a wide range of people coming together and connecting with each other after such a tricky time. And then I've attached the brief here because, like I said earlier, I think it's really important to show briefs and just be transparent with people. So this is what I got sent through. This is kind of what I had to work from. So I had funny as power, had to include the red nose, do's and don'ts, which was really interesting. So do's, use your fun style, have fun with it, keep it positive, but don'ts, I mean, don't be rude, don't be insulting. And usually a client will send you something like this or type it in an email, just some direction to help you with your design. And these were some of the roughs I sent through. So I got sent the email and I thought it was fake because I thought it was too good to be true. So I ignored it for like a week. And then the day before the deadline, they emailed me like, oh, you still have time to send in. And I was like, oh my God, this is actually real. So I quickly, I mean, this doesn't look rough, but I quickly mocked up this design and sent through loads of different options. And they chose this one in the end, and I had to use my handwriting as text instead because of licensing. But yeah, I guess just don't, you might get some spam emails, but don't ignore them all because it might be Comic Relief. But yeah, and I guess the way I got that brief and why I've gotten the work I have is because I've tapped into my passions. The left design is the fake like Doc Martin thing I did. Like I said, like I'm really passionate about that community, so I wanted to showcase work so I could get chosen to do that kind of work. I've done a lot of mental health work, so I've been chosen to do mental health podcasts and work for Student Minds, which is the top right. And I guess it just keeps me motivated, and it's just really nice to know that my work is inspiring other people and helping them speak about their mental health. And it's what has gotten me as far as it has, because I've tapped into my passions instead of trying to follow trends of illustration, which is quite important. Yeah, so just, I guess, to sum it all up, just make sure that you find enjoyment in what you do. Like I've gone on about a lot, and it must be annoying, but if you're creating work just to create it, you'll probably lose momentum, and we all go through it, and that's okay. But just reeling yourself in and being like, no, what are you passionate about? What do you want to do with your artwork? Or do you just want it to be pretty? And that's lovely, because I do that too. Make sure you enjoy it. Reach out to people, email people, don't be embarrassed to message potential clients that you want to work with. You know, it's not embarrassing, they get it all the time. Just make sure you attach your work and make yourself stand out. Connect with people, not just art directors, but connect with other creatives. I've learned so much from creatives around me. I get inspired by them all the time. And even if I see someone do something on Instagram, I'll message them and say, how did you do that? That looks really cool. And they'll usually just tell me, or we'll work together. And that's always really exciting. And be confident in your work, because you're doing it for a reason and it's probably great. And I suffer from imposter syndrome. I think most people suffer from imposter syndrome. But have confidence in your work, because it is great and it is subjective. And don't hold yourself back, because it's all a learning journey. I even look at work I posted like 2 years ago and think, oh, that's horrible. But if I didn't post it, I wouldn't have gotten to where I am today. If I didn't make it, I wouldn't have gotten to where I am today. So that's important. And experiment, even if you're not in uni anymore. Just experiment with different media, experiment with different things, different subject matter, and push yourself, and it will strengthen you as a creative. And yeah, just a big thank you. I've probably just rambled for half an hour, but thank you for having me on, and I'm here to answer questions. And if you don't want to ask questions now, here are all my details if you want to send a message later on. But yeah.
Thanks, Lizzie. That was really good.